How's it going, friends? Today, we're going to look at one of those games that are truly spectacular. So let's get right into the action and look at several lessons that will be very useful for us, especially when we play our own games. The game started with knight f3. The Peruvian player with the white pieces started with a ready opening, which is this knight f3. Normally, as you know, it starts with the king's pawn, the queen's pawn, or even the bishop's pawn. But the opening with knight f3 is no less common, waiting to see what the opponent does to then play the king's pawn, queen's pawn, bishop's pawn, or even the knight's pawn to fianchetto the castled bishop. The game continues with d5. Black responds with the queen's pawn, and the white player decides to directly propose a direct attack on the center. The idea is that it's true, a pawn is being given away, but it's not quite like that, because normally when this pawn is accepted, it can be recovered in a more or less simple way. In fact, you're going to see it next. The game continues with c6. The pawn is defended in the Slav style. You know that the Slav style is defending the d pawn with a c pawn and creating this kind of structure. And now the white pieces play g3. The idea is obvious. All of his pieces are going to be pointing toward the center. The c-pawn targets the d5 square, the bishop will come out on g2, and therefore will also target this d5 square. White is converging its forces on the d5 square. Knight f6. Black acts accordingly. If white targets the d5 square, black also defends it with all of its pieces. Bishop g2, and black captures this pawn. Let me explain why it's interesting to capture this pawn now and not before. It could have been captured before, there's no problem at all. But black's reasoning was as follows. If white has developed the light-squared bishop via the fianchetto, it's no longer going to defend this c4 square. Therefore, I'll be able to capture it, and white's plan will no longer be to play the king's pawn to recover it with the bishop. Now they're going to have it a bit more complicated to recover this pawn. But I'm telling you, white's plan isn't to recover it immediately. Instead, they'll castle the king first and then focus on recovering this pawn. The only way to defend it, what is it? By pushing the b-pawn. And what's the problem with pushing the b-pawn? That it greatly weakens the 6 square, it's going to be left far behind, and look at how beautifully this bishop points toward here. So it's not going to be easy to defend this pawn. And that's why after this knight from b to d7, white is already preparing its attack on the c4 square to recover this pawn. See? Knight a3, although it seems like a slightly strange development because it goes to the side, this knight can actually be recycled in its next move, either by capturing the c4 pawn or by placing itself on c2, from where it targets interesting squares, right? The idea is that if they want to defend it with b5, any knight move would be attacking this c6 point way too strongly with both pieces, and this would already be quite dangerous. Very, very dangerous for the black pieces, right? And that's why they decide to defend this pawn, but not with the pawn, but with the knight itself. Knight b6. You're more or less getting this concept, right? Very well. The idea is that now white keeps pressing a little bit more. Queen c2. With what idea? With the idea of winning back this pawn. Can it still be defended? Well, yes, but it would already be perhaps very forced, right? It would be the move bishop e6, and it would already hinder the development of the dark-squared bishop a bit. They're getting in each other's way, all to defend a pawn that doesn't really do anything anyway. White will probably win it back easily, right? That's why the black player here says, look, you know what? Go ahead and take that pawn. I'm going to continue with my development since you're very well developed, fianchettoed, castled, and I still need many moves to castle, let alone putting obstacles in my own way here, right? I'm going to play g6 and I'm going to develop my bishop via g7. Now then, what does white play? Knight takes c4. Simple, right? Now, black can capture this knight, in fact they do. They make the exchange of knight takes c4 simply because they understand that this knight is better placed than theirs, and that's why they decide to make this exchange. Queen takes c4, the queen is centralized, but really quote-unquote easy to attack, for example with a bishop e6, now that this bishop is developing via fianchetto, right? And debris. Many of you will wonder, let's see, chess stitcher, you're often very tedious, huh? Because, let's see, if nothing else, you're tedious for a while, huh? Me here, insulting myself too. The idea is that many times we want to occupy the center, right? If we want to. Don't you always say the center is so important? Yes, but White's plan is none other than to move the queen to the king side and attack. And you're going to see that they're going to carry out a very interesting attack on the king side. And that's why instead of playing d4, they first play d3, leaving the fourth rank free so that the queen can move to the king side. Look how interesting this thing I just mentioned to you is. And you're gonna see it, because after black castles, that's precisely when this queen h4 starts. All of you who are students of the academy will understand that. Here we find a fianchetto where black has a traditional fianchetto with the knight on f6, the bishop on g7, and there are several patterns to go and attack this type of structure. Like, for example, we saw in Flavia's class within the academy with the bishop on h6, the knight on g5, and then pushing with the pawn. It's very good for us to review all these patterns, because if we know them, then in games, the attacks come just like that. In fact, inside the academy, we have, look, the how to attack the fianchetto, how to attack with same-side castling, how to attack with the double fianchetto. All these classes are there, so you just have to log in to review them. Hey, if you're not in the academy yet, I recommend it 100%, I'm telling you, to join. If you want, you can just try it for 1 month. The great thing is, once you're in, you can watch the classes as many times as you want. They're not live, they're recorded videos, so you can watch them whenever you like. We already have at least 15 classes uploaded and new ones are added every week. Plus, everyone who joins gets full free access to the ChessMine app. Anyway, I won't keep nagging, but I'm saying this because I truly recommend it 100%. As you can see, white is already sensing an attack on black's castle position. And look at what the black player does, queen b6. A queen development that seems to attack the queen side, but the attack will actually be very strong on this flank. I think, and it's easy to say now that I know what happened in the game, that moving the queen to the opposite flank of where the attack is coming from might not be the best move for black. Here we go. If you've understood the patterns, you'll get what Flavia explained in that class, the move e4. We're going to try to kick out this sentinel on f6, which is really the best defender of the castled king. Would it be a good idea to try to play e5? Yes, but they can't because we have the knight. So look at this very interesting plan from white. Rook e8, to see if I have time to close with this e5, but white says, no, 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 don't get ahead of yourself. That's exactly why I played e4, to play e5 and kick out this knight. Even though we're leaving a very good hole on the d5 square with this advance, it's true the knight is perfectly centralized, but we're not interested in the center right now. Well, we are, but we're mainly interested in being able to eliminate this knight to later bring the bishop, maybe the knight to g5, and launch a massive attack. And so it begins. Knight g5, threatening checkmate. And many of you will say, yes, but after this h6, you have to retreat, which is what happened in the game, but a weakness has been created on h6, which you'll now have to defend. For example, with the move g5, which would already be very dangerous because there would be extremely tough sacrifices around here with the move h5, but probably after an h3 grams 4, we could undermine the structure and end up winning the game. And that's why the black player says, look, you know what? I'm going to tuck the king away on h7, where everything will be well defended, and now you can't sacrifice anything. Well, stay calm, because the white player continues with his plan. Rook 1. You'll see why this rook 1 is played. Not just to over-defend this point, but to join the attack in the future. The game continues with bishop f5. It seems like black has everything under control, but white has central and lateral dominance, so they control the position. And here's where the key point of the game arrives. And the key point is this. Black plays f6. They'd like to play g5 to try and trap this queen, right? But here, there would be very interesting sacrifices, or even directly knight takes g5 could be played, taking advantage of the fact that the h6 pawn is pinned. That's why they first play this f6 to later be able to advance to g5. The idea is that the e6 pawn is being weakened a lot. You already know that whenever you move a pawn, you create weaknesses. This point was defended, now it's not anymore, and it becomes a weakness. At first glance, it can't be exploited, but you'll see that in a few moves, this weakness will become apparent. The game continues with g4, the bishop has to go, and now a brutal move. Pay attention, okay? Bishop takes h6. Is the bishop being given away? Yes, but the attack is so strong that we can afford to give away a bishop. And that's why I'm bringing this game, because it perfectly shows how to attack this type of position. Watch closely. Bishop takes bishop. Obviously, there's nothing better than capturing it, otherwise, it would move away with check and it would be even worse. And now it advances to g5. The bishop is being threatened. If they don't do anything, I'm going to take it. Therefore, they must capture the g5 pawn. And now, knight takes g5. Check. The king has to move, but look at one thing. Now this e6 weakness can indeed be exploited. See how in just a few moves this weakness has already become apparent? And now it's the knight that enters. The king can't come to attack it because they'd lose the bishop, so he has to stay defending his bishop. And the game continues with a brilliant move. And this is truly the move that deserves a round of applause, because without it, nothing would work. Watch, what a wonderful move. Bishop e4. At first glance, a normal move, but it's completely lethal. The bishop is being threatened, so it's gonna have to move. And many of you will say, hey, well, I'll just take your bishop and that's it. Capturing the bishop would have completely drastic consequences, since after rook takes, as you can see, the threats of queen takes h6 check, sacrificing the queen, and then rook h4 could no longer be stopped. You get this, right? The knight eliminates any kind of escape for the enemy king, and therefore, if the exchanges occur, queen takes h6, king takes h6, rook h4 will come, a spectacular back rank checkmate. And that's why the bishop cannot be captured. And if it can't be captured, what do they have to do? Well, either move it or defend it, there's nothing better. And when black tries to defend the position, white responds by playing queen h3, which provides extra support for the knight. Also, the rook can come over to the attack at some point. And many of you will wonder, why then are you placing the queen on h3 if she was already fine on h4 and doing the same thing? Well, to put pressure on the d3 point, the bishop. You know that black resigned here? How can that be? Well, I'll explain it to you, because this needs to be explained. Obviously, it can't be captured because we're in the same situation. Therefore, the bishop has to be defended. The best move black has is knight f4. They attack the queen, they defend over here, forcing us to make this exchange. Or rather, better yet, more than an exchange. It's you take me here, I take you here, right? The thing is, after rook takes, we're pretty even on material, because remember, it looks like we want a piece, but we gave it up earlier. Queen takes g2. I'm simulating what could have happened in the game. The rook is attacked, so you can see why the black player resigned. There's nothing better than, say, capturing this pawn and trying to advance these pawns here, but simply a move like knight e6, and then after any move, rook h4, as you can see, there's no way to defend it all. Whatever they do will follow up with f4, cutting the defense between the queen and bishop, for example. Rook 8-8, f4, and this is going to fall like ripe fruit from a tree, right? What did you think of this? A spectacular game. Maybe black resigned a bit early, it's true, but these professional players already see when there's no way out. For that, of course, you have to become a student of the academy, man. How have you not become a student of the academy yet? You can talk to me whenever you want. I'll help you out. We'll study together, you can watch the videos whenever you want, study at ChessMine. Man, it's worth it, isn't it? If you're not a student yet, though you probably already are, I'll leave it for you down in the description as always. You just go in and it's all very simple. Any questions, you can get in touch with me. I hope you loved this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you tomorrow, as always, in the next video, friends. Goodbye.